Before we start working out the examples, I'm just going to point out that having a multiplication and a positive, that is not adjacent signs. Adjacent signs only counts with positives and negatives, pluses and minus signs. So what we're doing here is -4 times +5. Now, when the signs are the same, we get a positive answer. So that's whether it's a positive times a positive or a negative times a negative, we get a positive answer. When the signs are different, we get a negative answer. So I always do this in 2 stages. 1, is the answer going to be positive or negative? And then 2, just times the numbers, ignoring signs. We are doing, in this question, a negative times a positive. And that means that the answer is going to be negative. And then ignoring the signs, I just do 4 times 5, which is 20. With the next one, I'm doing negative times a negative, which tells me the answer is positive. And then I just do 4 times 5, which is 20. I could have that as plus 20 or just as 20. We know without the sign in front that it's positive. With the next one, I'm doing a positive times a negative. Those signs are different, so the answer will be negative. And then just do 4 times 5. Positive times a positive, well, we're used to that. That's just 4 times 5, which is 20. -4 squared, that means -4 times -4. Remember, the square just means multiply a number by itself. So I'm doing a negative times a negative, so the answer is positive, and then doing 4 times 4, which is 16. A positive 4 squared, well, that's just 4 times 4, and we know the answer there is 16. -1 to the 7 is -1 times -1 times -1 times -1 times -1 times -1 times -1. Remember, we've done work on indices before, so we know that that's what this means. Now, a negative times a negative is a positive, so every pair of these is going to give me a positive. So that's positive there, then positive there, then positive there. So far we're just multiplying positives, so it's positive up to where I am. But then I do that positive times a negative, which means the answer overall is going to be negative. A nice easy way to remember this is when you've got an odd number, there's always going to be one left over, which is going to make it negative. But if you have an even index, then the negatives will just cancel each other out, and the answer will end up being positive. And then all we need to do is 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 7 times, and of course it's just 1. Common mistake there is that students write down -7. But remember, you're doing 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, and it doesn't matter how many times you multiply 1 by itself, it's still 1. Finally, we've got -4 squared, but not like this. The negative is outside. And what that means is that we're doing the negative of 4 times 4. We're not doing -4 times -4. We're doing 4 squared and taking the negative. When we do some work on BIMDAS later, this will become clearer. So it's a negative times a positive, which is negative, and then 4 times 4, which is 16. We'll also look at this when we do calculator work later in these lessons.